I'm Andrew Berman from NMP, and you are watching the Mortgage Leadership Outlook, where we come to you every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock East Coast time, meeting with the greatest leaders in the mortgage industry. It's a show that we started back at the beginning of the pandemic, just to kind of get inside the mind of these great leaders and just understand, you know, what like how they were adjusting, how they were dealing with it. Super excited to have my buddy Phil Treadwell, like the podcasting pioneer, former top originator, branch manager, now mortgage executive or mortgage broker owner to it for some time. Top Clubhouse moderator. I got all sorts of questions, but I don't understand actually Clubhouse. I'm on it, and I see you're on it. I mean, I got to understand it, and that's really one of the reasons. I mean, I wanted to hear your story. I love your story, but like, I'm like, okay, this is a reason that I got to get him on now. So basically, there's that, and also wait, certified beer server. I think so. You look at his resume, and I'm just like, oh, okay, so I'm a mortgage company, certified beer. So what? So okay, like, I love mortgages, but I love beer more.
Yeah.
So let's talk beer. Like, how did you get into the beer business? And then we'll go into like, like the other questions that probably everyone wants to know. But this is the questions that I want to know about.
Yeah. This is I think there's, especially in the mortgage industry, there's probably quite a few people that might want to know about the beer questions too. So, props to you for digging a little further in my LinkedIn profile. That's pretty good. So
more.
So back in the day, I lived in Denver briefly. I owned a little broker shop. I sold it to Wells Fargo, had an opportunity for a position in Colorado. It was craft beer mecca. And I turned around and moved back to Northwest Arkansas in a county that was dry. I knew it was going wet, but you went from craft beer mecca to Bud Miller, Coors, and Boulevard Wheat if you were lucky. And I started home brewing, and I realized there was an opportunity to potentially open a brewery. And so I ended up opening a brewery in 2015. And most people know what a wine sommelier is, but on the beer side, it's called a cicerone. And there's levels of it. The first one is a certified beer server. The second is an actual certified cicerone, and then they have a master cicerone. And so I like beer. I like how beer is made, all of those types of things. And so I'm not quite to a true cicerone, which would be equivalent to a sommelier on the wine side, but I do have my my certified beer server certification. So that's that.
So how many hours does it take to get actually that certified beer server certification?
It requires to take it and pass a test. And because I had a background in the industry, I was able to take it and pass it. So it didn't take a lot of time, but I would say that for someone that doesn't understand a lot about all the different types of beer styles and aromas and tastes and things that go into brewing beer, it may take a few dozen hours to, go through some of the books and things to do some studying, which again, same way with a cicerone, it's going to take me some time to have to learn more beer styles and do some blind taste testing and things like that.
So was it a little more fun than the NMLS?
You know what? It was a little more fun than getting mortgage license for sure. I would have to say that you wouldn't have to twist my arm to pick one over the other.
Nice, very cool, man. And what's your favorite kind of beer?
Oh man, that's tough. I'm an IPA guy, and I know that's the standard answer for craft beer folks. My gateway beer was Blue Moon, so I have a soft spot for wheat beers and Belgians. And what I found with Belgians is you either like them or you don't. They have a very distinct taste, and so for the non-standard IPA answer, I'll go with wheat beers and Belgians.
Nice, very cool, awesome. All right, so you grew up in Neosho? How do you
Neosho, Missouri.
Yeah. Okay, so Neosho, Missouri. What's it like growing up in Neosho, Missouri? Tell us a little bit about actually, your background, actually, and where, your roots in Neosho, Missouri.
So it was the southwest corner of Missouri. It's just south of Joplin. Most people know Joplin, Missouri, because of the big tornado that went through there several years ago. I'm the product of a teacher and a builder. My dad's a builder, entrepreneur. So I tell people a lot. I'm a good mix of academia meets entrepreneurship, because I had a mom who had 4.0 GPA through her high school, college, and master's, and so we always had to do good in school. My dad only went to junior college so that he could play baseball. And so he opened up his own company. So, growing up there was a town of about 10,000 people. It was a pretty typical upbringing. After I graduated high school in Missouri, I moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and went to University of Arkansas. Go Hogs, Razorback fan. It's been a pretty difficult 2 decades to be a Razorback fan. So we're going to leave that topic right there and move on. Got into the mortgage business. My plan originally was to take over my dad's company, to be a builder. And he said, before you do this for the next 40 years, you need to think long and hard. And I at least want you to see what else is out there. And I answered a newspaper ad for a company that was looking for someone that had both sales and management experience. And I'd been a store manager for Blockbuster Video, and I'd done some corporate sales for a company. And I answered the ad, and it was a mortgage company, and it was a little Full Eagle correspondent shop. So while everybody was out there doing subprime stuff, I was doing a bunch of manual underwrite FHA deals. And my first 60
2004.
2003, 2004, yeah. And,
no one was doing that stuff then.
Well, it was interesting. The next couple of years, there was a lot of it, actually. I have a lot of people that was doing 80. Well, nobody's doing manual underwrite FHA stuff for sure. But everybody was doing these 80-20 with 8.5 on a first and 11 on a second. I'd swoop in with a 7% FHA deal with down payment assistance. And my first 60 deals, I would probably say 45 of them were manual FHAs. And didn't know I could do a refi because my boss never told me. He just said, go talk to realtors. So I did. About a year and a half in, I called him. I said, hey, a buddy of mine said rates dropped from 7 to like 6.5 and wants me to do a refi. Can I do that? And he's laughing at me on the other end of the phone. And so anyway, that's how I got in the industry.
Do you remember your first deal?
I do. Yeah. My first deal was actually a high school friend, and I knew the lady who was the realtor, and he and his wife had gotten married, and it was an FHA deal. They put their own down payment. But I remember they got in, I think when it was all said and done, their minimum down payment, like $250. And his name was Lance. We played high school basketball together. My second deal was my ex-wife's sister, so my ex-sister-in-law. And so, I remember those first few deals like in detail.
Wow. So okay, so then you kicked butt as an originator. And so 2008, you joined Wells.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, you had your mortgage company. You sold your mortgage company to Wells.
I did.
So 2008. I'm just like Wells was buying, because it was a mortgage brokerage, right?
It was, yeah. They were recruiting through acquisition at the time, because I opened it in 2006, and if you remember that time period, that wasn't the smartest time to be opening up a broker shop or any financial services business. And we only had a couple LOs. It was me. I was the lion's share of the production. We were kind of doing our own thing. And I'd been approached a couple of times, by a recruiter to go to work for them, and I wasn't interested. And they came along and struck a deal where they essentially paid off the little bit of debt we had on it and reimbursed me for almost all of the money that I had put into the company. And obviously a fairly generous kind of sign-on and guarantee for a period of time. And things were so uncertain in 2008. This was right before Wells Fargo merged with Wachovia. So I was at Wells during that whole time. It was just so uncertain times. They made me whole and paid me enough money to close my company down. And then all of us went to work for Wells. So it wasn't an official M&A, type thing, but that's kind of how they acquired us as employees. Stayed with them. I was a top producer in about a 6-state region over 2009 because rates dropped from 6 to 4.5 almost overnight. And did that for about 2 years. The big bank model just didn't suit me at that time in the markets that I was in, and so I transitioned back to the independent mortgage banker side.
Interesting. And like, so, like, what was the impetus that said, okay, we got to get out of this Wells thing. It's not working. Like, what didn't work for you?
We got an email from our fulfillment centers, which for people that don't know the Wells lingo, that was essentially, we would have these fulfillment sites that had your mortgage specialists, your MSs, which are processors, your underwriters, closers, funders, everything in one site. And they would do what was called an SLA, a service level agreement. And when we got that fulfillment SLA, it said any files that we get that we, because we were still overnighting FedEx paper files at this time in 2009. From the time we get it and receive it, that it's checked in and we have it, you cannot close and fund that for 30 days. Whether it's a purchase, a refi, a conventional government, doesn't matter. You have to have 30 days from the time we get it. Well, then you do the math. It's going to take me, what, a week to 2 weeks on the front end to originate the file and get it ready to go, to fulfillment. And that was essentially me having all of my referral partners write 45 to 60-day contracts. And I just couldn't do that. I couldn't be competitive in the market like that.
Yeah. And I guess listen, Wells was calling the shots at that point.
They were. One of every 3 transactions at that time was going through Wells, whether it was retail, correspondent, or wholesale. So literally, they had 33 1/3% of the entire mortgage market nationwide.
Very cool, man. It makes sense of the transition. So when did the podcast? When did you actually create the? And if those are, I'm assuming everyone knows, the mortgage market. Did I spell that right? Mortgage Marketing Expert podcast. And there's a link right there if you can want to go check it out. You can subscribe to all the platforms. It's available. But what was the impetus to say, okay, I'm going to create a podcast? Because you created a podcast really before, like, most people understood what a podcast was.
Well, I appreciate that. So in short, I'd wanted to do a podcast about a year before I actually did it. I'm still using the original Blue Yeti that I bought probably 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. I bought the microphone and was going to do it, but I didn't know how to do it, right? Because then, that many years ago, podcasting wasn't quite as mainstream as it is now. And my whole thought process at the time is, as an area manager where I was, outside of a few regions, no one really knew who I was. No one knew who my company was. And my recruiting results went down pretty substantially. And so I started doing some content marketing online with some blogging, because we Googled people at that time. And I wanted to give them something of credibility. When they Googled me, who I was, I wanted them to be like, okay, that guy can help me build my business. I may want to go work for him. Yeah. That quickly turned into social media. And I started a page on Instagram called Mortgage Marketing Experts, where I was going to share a mortgage marketing tip of the day. After about 30 days, there were like 1,000 people following the page. And frankly, after 90 days, I started running out of stuff to say. There's only so many one-liners you can come up with, and I needed content. So I actually didn't have really big vision for the podcast. I ended up starting the podcast so that I would bring on, huge leaders in our industry, mortgage marketing experts. I wasn't branding myself. I was branding the guests that I was bringing on. And I was using their quotes to feed that Instagram page, that mortgage marketing tip of the day. My first 5 guests were Barry Habib, Tim Brahim, Casey Cunningham with Zenix, Tim Brahim, let's see, Barry, Tim, Casey, Todd Bookspan, Dave Savage.
Okay, so like you start off with that, like you cannot fail.
Right. Well, that's what happened. Is we end up having a huge lineup, and the long story short was that people started the podcast started exploding, and I started having to use social media to promote the podcast, not the other way around. So the entire play was to create exposure, and we genuinely wanted to give back, because when you think about marketing, it's who's your audience, what value can you provide them, and then what's the best medium to provide value to that audience. Mortgage professionals are busy. We don't sit and watch, a ton of video. Where podcasting, you can do a lot of different things at the same time. So I specifically chose to start a podcast because mortgage professionals can do it while it's in the background of the office, while they're in the car, gym, and we wanted to add value to them. And it's just kind of exploded from there.
Interesting. Listen, I think a lot of those same things that work for podcasting is what's working for Clubhouse, and we'll get into that. But So what year did the first episode of the Mortgage Marketing Expert podcast drop?
We launched with 5 episodes on June 1st, 2018. So we started recording in late April, early May of 2018. Launched with 5 episodes. I went to Mastermind Summit at June when those first came out, met a ton of other people, Renee Rodriguez and Michael Mayer and several of the folks, Jen Duplessis, that ended up being kind of that next batch of guests. Yeah. So we're 2.5 years in, almost 3 years in this summer, and getting ready. If not the end of this week, first part of next week, we'll roll out our 100th episode.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Who's the guest for the 100th episode?
So I did a compilation episode. So Gary V was episode 50. This one's a compilation episode of 10 of our most downloaded episodes. So we do have Barry and Todd and Lee Brown and Steve Sims, Renee Rodriguez, Chelsea Pites, Dustin Brome. We got a whole slew of great guests. So it's going to be a compilation episodes. I've recorded about 6 or 8 minutes with each one of them. Cindy Ertman. It'd be really cool.
So, you mentioned Gary. I gotta ask. And I mean, I've watched your interview, and we've actually talked about this. So can you share with our audience here, some insights that you pulled away from your interview with Gary?
Yeah. So the two questions I get asked the most, actually, one was, how much did you have to pay to get an interview with Gary V? And the answer was, I didn't pay anything. It was just, I had to add some value and ask. The second question I ask that I get asked is he just like you see him on social media? And that answer is absolutely. He is 100% authentic on and off camera. The thing I learned the most from him is I say a lot. I talk about effective marketing is the balance of trust and attention, right? With TikTok, you could do something outrageous and go viral, get a lot of attention, but that doesn't mean that people are going to do business with you. But you could be a trusted industry professional. If people don't know who you are, you're still capped in the amount of business you would do. And I asked him about that concept. And the one thing that he said is, it's not just trust or attention, it's relevance. Why do we care? Why does it matter? So relevance has really been my kind of battle cry, especially through 2020, because relevance is something of why people are connected, why something matters to them. It's the same reason that we're attracted to people that have stuff in common with us. We naturally trust those people that are like us, and so that's important as we market. And the way he framed that was really, really cool. And the other main takeaway, I say a lot that marketing gets someone's attention, and it's sales that makes them a customer. And I asked him about that concept as well. And the first thing he said is that 90% of the time people think they're marketing when really they're just selling. And you've got to stop that. It's coming across as spammy. And so those were the 2 biggest takeaways for me personally.
I like that. I like that. So go back to actually, because you said actually you have to add value, so how do you add value to Gary? It's got to, he has actually, the tools to do all the podcasting. He's got videographers following around. He's got VaynerMedia. So how does Phil Treadwell, add value to Gary Vaynerchuk?
That was the question. That was the magic question that I'd been thinking about for a long time, because he was the the ungettable guest, if you will, for me. And what happened was, if everybody remembers Agent 2021 event that Gary did for a couple of years, the first year had real estate and some other types of agents. And the next year that he did it, he added mortgage. Yeah. Well, I knew that because he had a contract with Chase, he didn't talk a lot about mortgage or finance content in his content for a while. And I'd actually been like, why doesn't he talk real estate? Why doesn't he ever talk mortgage? And I kind of found that out. So when he added mortgage to the Agent 2021 lineup, I knew that was going to be, I think, January of 2019, if I remember correctly. Right. And so December 2018, I'd only had the podcast 6 months. I literally sent him an email, cold email, just the Gary at VaynerMedia that he gives on all of his content. And I sent an email, and in the title line, I put "More butts in seats at Agent 2021." And in the body, I said, I have a podcast. I knew he knew Ryan Serhant. I said, I've had Ryan Serhant on there. We have a good audience of mortgage professionals. I'd love to even have you on a Zoom for 5 or 10 minutes. I think we can help promote the event and help you, sell some tickets. Like, that was the only way I knew to add value was some people know who you are, but not a ton of people in my niche space. Yep. Let me try to help. And he replied back a day and a half later and said, I would do it, copied in his team. We set up a Zoom recording, this whole thing. He ended up having to cancel. And so I went to the Agent 2021 event, having not done my podcast. I told everybody it was scheduled. I promoted, hey, he's going to be on. And he wasn't on. Huh. So I got to meet him at Agent 2021. I got to do dinner, got all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, now what? How do I add value? So I continued to email different things. I continued to follow up on the chain, and I kept following up for about 7 months. And every couple weeks, I would send an email. And he had this thing where his K-Swiss Gary V04 came out and said, hey, if you buy 5 pairs and send it in, I've got a special piece of content. So I bought 5 pairs of the Gary V04s. I didn't know what size I wore, and it came in high top and low top. So I did a couple sizes, or one size high top, low top, another one that I got my wife a pair. And I sent the receipt to that same email chain and said, hey, just want to add some value any way I can. If that's helping promote the shoe, here you go. And immediately Tyler, his assistant, responded back and said, hey, man, we haven't forgotten about you. Instead, we'll be in touch. So I ended up having to return a couple of the pairs because obviously they didn't fit. So if anybody, I guess if you want to say I paid something, I bought some shoes. That was the money that I spent. But about a week later, Alexander Raffington, which is one of his on his executive team, said, hey, instead of doing a Zoom, since it's been so long since we originally said, why don't you just come to VaynerMedia and you can record here? And I was like, twist my arm. So long story short, I reached out to a friend of mine, Jazz Takar, up in Canada, who I knew had gotten to interview Gary, asked him a ton of questions of, hey, what's the right thing to do here? Got my buddy Dustin Brome from Industry Syndicate and a guy that was in London at the time who was one of my podcast producers. And we formed a game plan and went and documented it and got to do that in October of 2019.
So awesome. So cool, man. That's great, man. Such a great experience, and you shared everything. The airplane, the classic over the wing shot. It's great, man. So all right, so okay, putting Gary aside, who's your favorite podcast guest? You got to pick favorites here. You got to pick one favorite. You got to shoot everyone else. All the other 99 actually you're going to shoot, and we got to pick one actually who's going to be your favorite.
Oh, you can't do that to me because I've had so many good guests.
Or you got to pick up your guitar and play a song. You're going to pick up a guitar and play a song, or you going to actually pick your favorite.
I'm considering the guitar right now. You know what? I'm going to. I will pick one because I think that people will understand. I think Lee Brown was probably one of my favorite guests, or if not the favorite guest. And the reason why is anybody that knows Lee Brown knows she is a huge realtor. She's best-selling author, has multiple podcasts. She's vice president of National Association of Realtors Advocacy. She is the queen of real estate in my mind. And when she came on and we talked about, because she's in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's not any companies out there that you could think that would be based there that would also be marketing to someone like Lee. And we talked about the mortgage lender realtor relationship. And she just let it out there. Guys, if you're doing this, stop it. If you're not doing this, you need to. You're not. She really kind of called out mortgage professionals with how you should be in your relationships. And even now, I know that we're going to talk about Clubhouse. She is killing it on Clubhouse. She is absolutely laying it on people and setting people straight, and is very unfiltered in the classiest way possible. And she just, I know people got a ton of impact from that one. And again, there's dozens that I could go through and say the same thing about. But if you're gonna make me pick one, I'm gonna pick Lee.
That's great. Fantastic. I was hoping to get you to play guitar there. I thought actually that
we were close.
We
were close for a second.
And play a couple of chords there. All right. So, like one last thing about the podcast, then we can get into the Clubhouse because I'm just excited about this, and I don't know what I'm excited about. So tell us about what actually advice would you have for podcast guests? So someone's going to come on next to, your podcast or any other podcast out there, and they're going to be a guest, because especially actually with Clubhouse, I think actually you're pretty much like a podcast guest in like a mini podcast guest. So tell us, advice for anyone that's going to be out there that's going to be on a podcast.
If you're gonna be a guest on a podcast, the very first thing you need to do is go listen to a couple of episodes or more, if you haven't already, of that podcast.
Yeah,
because you're going to find out very quickly what type of questions are going to get asked. You're going to know, are there any quote unquote trick questions, and just how the feel is supposed to go. That's the very first thing you do. The second thing that I would say is make sure that you have a strong Wi-Fi or internet connection, and that whatever the audio device is, whether you have a USB mic or AirPods or earbuds or whatever you're using, make sure they work well. And that's if the only challenges that I've ever had with any guests are going to be that I can't hear them because there's some type of an echo because they're just trying to use the built-in microphone on their computer or laptop, or spotty internet. So listen to what the podcast is about, go in prepared, and make sure that your internet and microphone are good. Those are my best pieces of advice.
So simple. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So, all right. So now on to Clubhouse. Okay. So first off, for those actually that are just actually watching and that are aren't plugged into what Clubhouse is, how would you describe Clubhouse?
Clubhouse is a social media app where you get to drop in and listen to conversations in an audio format. And in short, it's just like any other social platform where you can go and follow people and they can follow you. See right there it is. And whatever people you're following, any rooms that they're in will kind of show up in your quote unquote feed. You can also follow clubs of different interests and different topics. And yeah, there's a room just like that. So, once you're in a room, you can raise your hand to potentially be invited on quote stage to speak or become a moderator. Or you can do something simple as if you have a friend, you guys can start a room one-on-one and chat. Now, sometimes people can jump in unless you make it private. Some people can't. So I've heard, I think Gary Vee actually used the description of it's a lot like Twitter was in 2007 to 2009, where you can just kind of jump into people's conversations. Now on Twitter, it was hashtag related, or you could search by profiles where you could literally get into two celebrities' conversations and contribute if you wanted to. Whether they responded or not, who knows? But yeah, it's a social media app. Right now it's for iPhone only, so it's only available on iOS. And it's also by invite only currently. So you either have to get an invite from someone who's there, or if you go reserve your name when you download the app, if you have a friend who's in there, it'll pop up that they can let you in. So it's a super cool platform to collaborate, to speak, to learn. I'm super bullish, especially when you talk about audio and voice. Me being a podcaster, it's something I'm super enthusiastic about.
So why should someone that's watching this? Most of these people are watching this either originators, broker owners, branch managers. Why should they be participating in Clubhouse?
Main reason is because it's blowing up in the real estate community. Almost every room that I'm in or participate in is real estate related or is run by real estate professionals. So you want to network with people on the real estate side. That is one of the most phenomenal ways to do it. The second thing is you're going to learn from some of the best. And I'll take a little bit of a detour away from origination. I was actually brewing beer one day, and it was on a weekend and my wife was gone. I plugged in, my AirPods, and I turned on Clubhouse, and I went into a room of just some of these nationally recognized real estate investors. Grant Cardone was coming in and out of the room. Clever Investor was coming in and out of the room, like the real people. And it was on real estate investing, and that's not necessarily my space. And I sat and listened for probably 3.5 or 4 hours about how these guys fix and flip and buy and hold. And I told my wife later, had I known that was the content I was going to get at a conference, I'd have paid upwards of $5,000 to go to that conference to learn that stuff. Wow. So you're talking about marketing your business, networking with realtors, having conversations. There's a ton of reasons to be on it. I'm obviously pretty enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, and so and it's amazing because like you have people that just got into the real estate business. Their license, the ink is still wet on their license. And you just got seasoned professionals, multi-million-dollar producers. So it's just the full gamut of all sorts of different professionals. Everyone's helping each other. Everyone's like it's got this cool vibe. Like I don't care actually if you made $5 million last year, or if you only made $5,000 in doing one transaction actually in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, whatever it is, we're all in this together, and it's this great sense of community. So give some specific strategies. So let's say if someone's watching this as an originator, what should they do? So first off, let's assume that they have actually an invite. I only have 2 invites right now, so pending. So so tell us actually, they get an invite, they get the app. What are the first things that they should go do?
Fill out their bio. So here's the thing: there's no DMing feature in the direct message for those that may not know the lingo. There's no way to message a person back and forth written on the platform. So what happens is when you join, you get to add your picture and your name. And again, you've got to use your name. You can't really change it later. You can kind of customize the what do you call it? The username, the slug, your @ whatever. You can customize that, but typically the name, your actual name is what you're using. Fill out your bio, and you can connect your Twitter and or Instagram account. That's it. You link those. But put information in there. People know who you are, what you do. There's not really any hyperlinks. So if someone wants to link out from your bio, they're going to go to Twitter or Instagram. So you want to make sure your Instagram's filled out. So put your picture, put your name, put your bio so that people know who you are. Because what happens is, since there's no video, when you're in a Clubhouse room, you're looking at people's bios, both in the audience, on stage, and you're networking with us. Hey, I want to follow them, or hey, I'm going to go to their Instagram. I want to follow them. And you can, create conversations offline as well.
Listen, I just said, where am I going to use this? How am I going to use this? And I thought it was the dumbest thing. I mean, really, I installed it, but I'm just like, I don't know. I keep seeing people who I have a lot of respect for, like Phil Treadwell, like keeping actually getting on this thing. So, all right, let me plug into this and start listening to this thing, and then and I find actually that any time I'm like driving in the car, I'm listening to it. Anytime actually I'm just cleaning up around the house, I'm listening to it. So like it's my idle time is now has started to get sucked into into Clubhouse. What do you think is going to happen in the future of this? Like is this always going to be like an audio only app? I mean, any ideas? I mean, I feel like you seem to have like a really good pulse on this. So what do you think is going to happen in the future of this?
Yeah. So the first question you had is what is this used for? Why do people care? And again, it's the power of social media. In just a few weeks that I've been on it, I've been booked on probably half a dozen other people's podcasts. I found 3 or 4 people that I'm scheduling on my podcast. I've gotten hundreds of additional Instagram followers and people that I've connected with. And frankly, I've met more real estate and mortgage professionals in the DFW area where I live through there than any other social media app that I've connected people with, because you're having conversations. It's different than friending someone on Facebook or connecting with them on LinkedIn. Even if you send a DM back and forth, if someone's on stage, you get to hear them. And it's so much more personal hearing someone's voice. The reason I've been very excited about it is, as a podcaster, we're now creating a platform that people really adopt audio content at scale beyond just podcasting. What I found with people who listen to podcasts, either you listen to them and you listen to a good amount of them, or you just don't. You just don't consume content that way. Clubhouse is opening people up to that. And I truly believe that when it comes to technology, marketing platforms, and the way that we engage, whether it's Alexa devices or other smart speakers that are being integrated into cars, or how we consume content, audio and voice is going to play a much bigger role in business and our lives. So Clubhouse is participating in that. As far as where it's going, Right now it's iPhone only and free. Like there's no monetization on it at all whatsoever. Yeah. I think I saw an article that said it had like a $1.5 billion valuation, which in my mind is probably understated when you look at the attention that it's keeping of people that use it. But if I heard in a room that they did a kind of a State of the Union call or room recently, and it's going to be about 6 more months before Android users can participate and adopt. So I know a lot of people, or I've heard some influencers like Billy Jean is marketing. He went and bought an iPad so he could download the app and participate in Clubhouse because he's an avid Android user. And so, you know, people that are Android users that want to participate, go buy an Apple device and participate. But you know, I think there's probably a model where to get into certain rooms, to listen to certain people, you have to pay, and they find some way to partner with people who have a big following that people are coming to the app to listen to, cut them in. But, you know, the other day I was in a room, it was one of the first times I was on, Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, Damon John, Shark Tank, Damon John, and Billy Jean is marketing. All 4 were in a room.
Holy shit.
At the same time talking. You know, there's huge people. Gary V's on there a ton. Just to go and listen at that level is pretty incredible. So yeah, long story short, I'm very big on the app because they're doing something different than anyone else is doing. And if you think about, I was never a huge Snapchat guy. I missed that wave, if you will. But at the time, the reason Snapchat blew up is they were doing something different than Facebook or Twitter or Instagram was doing. And now every other platform has adopted that in some way, shape, or form. Clubhouse is doing something nobody else is doing, and I'm very big on that innovation.
Yeah, Ryan, amen. Clubhouse is a game changer for sure. No question about it. You know, to me, it's because it's like you look at all these other platforms, and all the other platforms, like the content is designed to get you to do something, to get you like to engage with something, to get you like, you know, click here, like here, something. This is just to get you to shut up and listen. Like, that's it. Like this is the only thing you could do is just shut up and listen or talk. You know, that's it. Your only 2 options are, you know, decide, okay, I'll follow these people, and it's just so hyper focused on that, and it's just doing it so well. That's great, man. So what's the biggest room that you've been a part of?
That I've listened in on, or that I've been on stage talking?
Either or. So let's say listened in. I'm curious, and then that you've been on stage for.
The biggest one I've listened in is probably 1,800 or 2,000 people, and that's when you've got some really big folks in there. You know, an average room is going to be anywhere between, you know, 30 and maybe 100 people, you know, just as far as a normal room in there. And you can start your own rooms, pick your own topics. You can schedule it. There's not like privileges you have to have. As far as speaking, this morning, there's a coffee cafe room there's a club called the Mortgage Syndication that does a real estate coffee cafe room every morning. So when I get to the gym, 6:15, 6:20, I jump on that room when I'm on the treadmill and listen in. And this morning I did some moderation on there, and I think we had a little over 200 people. So as far as me speaking on stage or moderating, the biggest room is a couple hundred. But again, you bring some celebrities or big people, influencers that are real influencers from different industries, you know, you can get 600, 800, couple thousand people pretty easy.
Yeah, and I love it. Like they go through everyone's like So if I remember correctly, yesterday I think they were like going through like they were going, one of this woman's actually pitches, like she was real estate, getting involved in real estate, and like they actually like they were giving her guidance on her pitches. Clearly, someone who's just new into the business, and you have some of like, you know, the greatest minds of real estate, you know, giving her advice. And the funny thing is, I think actually that, you know, while she's new into the business, like the simple thing of actually having a solid, you know, elevator pitch is so important that I'm sure most people don't. Most actually real estate professionals don't have that solid, you know, real estate or elevator pitch.
Totally. And it's interesting because it also helps you practice if you're public speaking, you know, doing your message, or a lot of like real estate professionals teaching brand newbies. It also, if you're wanting to build a team, right? Well, giving people advice or hearing other people give someone advice is also training as well. I think for me, I've gotten the opportunity to speak in a lot of rooms on podcasting or marketing or social media. But when I look around the room, I have, you know, a lot of, imposter syndrome. I think we all have it to a certain degree, but oh my gosh, there's some incredible people on here, and you know, I'm learning from them. People are coming in and asking questions, and I'm able to you know, meet folks, and I don't know. I just there's so many ways to apply it. You could go in there and start a community room. I've seen ones where they're actually having sharks. You know, the original shark, I can't remember his name, the infomercial guy. You know, they're actually having real people that are coming up and pitching, real investors. They get like 30 seconds or a minute to come in and pitch. And if someone's like, hey, I'm interested in hearing more, they DM on Instagram and connect. Well, where else do you have access to someone that has $100 million, you know, private equity fund that may invest in your business, and you get 60 seconds, make or break it? Like, that's incredible.
So like to go to because they have these conferences where you can go and actually pay to actually to do those elevator pitches, and you write big checks to be a part of that. Yeah. So it's great to see a platform like this that's able to create actually like a mature marketplace where you have actually, you know, someone like an investor, someone like a startup, be able to connect like this. It's great. Lots of fun in this app. I mean, and by the way, it's not just mortgage and real estate. Like, there's all sorts of like
all kinds of stuff.
I stumbled into like hip hop rooms. I stumbled into hip hop room a little late at night. Got a little crazy there, but so you got actually so you have that. Like I've been in Bitcoin. Actually, it's a lot of real estate investing. Tons of real estate investing. If you're, by the way, if you do actually any kind of lending focusing on renovation, fix and flip properties. Tons and tons of actually content for you for that. That's great. Listen, I'm excited. Do you have any invitations? If anyone actually wants, they can like contact you.
Actually, open it up to look. So I have 3 pending invites, and I have 3 invites available. So if you're an iOS user, DM me on Instagram. It's just @PhilTreadwell, and I will you got to give me your iPhone number. I'll add it to my contacts, and I can send you an invite. So I have 3 available that I can send.
I've got 2, so just somehow Google me. You know how to get me. I am Andrew Berman on Instagram or other ways. But fantastic, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
And let's just before we go, let's drop that banner here. Make sure you get over to the Mortgage Marketing Expert podcast. Every platform you could possibly imagine, it's on there. And just subscribe. One of the greatest podcasts that's in the mortgage business right now.
Appreciate that.
Some of the greatest leaders. Fantastic.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
All right. A lot of fun hanging with you. All right. Again, thank you for joining us for another Mortgage Leadership Outlook, where we meet with the greatest leaders in the mortgage industry. I'm super excited. Next week, we have Eric Mitchell's going to be joining us. He just published a book, The Why of Money, I believe it is.
Thank you. He literally just sent me a copy yesterday, so there's the book right there.
Oh, that's so perfect. Thank you. That's good. No, I couldn't have planned that actually any better if I tried. So that'll be next week. We're gonna get a little. He's got a crazy history about how he got in the mortgage business, or how he had a transformation, and then he's got his whole philosophy that basically a lot of originators are going to be out of the business actually, if they're not going to understand and embrace fintech. But those that are going to kick butt, and he's got a plan for them. So join us next week, every Wednesday, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock East Coast time. Everyone have a great last few days of the month.